Hey, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone is doing fantastic out there. It's going to be a busy day. Can already feel it. So, talking defensive coordinator intel here. Plenty going on in the transfer portal. I will drop another video later on this afternoon or early evening. So, be on the lookout at that as multiple players are visiting USC, I believe, as we speak. Plus, other visits have already been lined up. But those visits and the transfer portal in general will be directly affected by what's going on with the defensive coordinator position. So, not sure if it's necessarily intel at this time, but certainly news worth talking about and getting into, as here we are, January 3rd, and still no DC has been hired. And, I thought kind of from the beginning, I think most of us did, that this would be done kind of by New Year's Day, before the portal opened. We've all known, for sure USC has known about Lynn. Basically, they knew it was coming to a head. They knew he was probably going to leave. Maybe it wasn't a guarantee until later on in the process, but they've known for a while that it was coming to a head and was going to be that way. So they were not going to be caught off guard. There was a plan in place, and for whatever reason, the T's have not been crossed, the I's have not been dotted, or whatever may be, has not transpired yet. So the latest, and then we'll see kind of how it affects the entire search. But this is no doubt an absolutely integral or absolutely just monumental hire for Lincoln Riley, as, next year is do or die. I mean, 2026 is it, I think, for Lincoln Riley. If it is, success, it is playoff or bust for this program and keeping on what they have currently in the coaching staff and moving forward. So this hire is super important to what it can be. So today, to Richard Johnson, I believe he's with CBS, tweets out, and I'll put it up here on the screen. With Texas targeting Georgia Tech DC Blake Gideon for the role on staff, expect USC co-DC Eric Henderson to be in the mix at Georgia Tech. Henderson is an alum and called plays in the bowl game. He's also one of multiple internal options for Lincoln Riley to replace Danton Lynn at DC. So whether this is some smoke, whether this is speculation, I've said all along, I think Coach Henne is one of the top defensive line coaches in the country. He's highly respected around the country, highly respected around just football circles, and it would be hard to keep him retained at the same level. At some point, someone was going to come knocking to get him a promotion. Whether that ends up being Georgia Tech, I don't know. I don't have sources over there, so we'll see how much smoke there is to this actual fire. But the way I'm kind of understanding it, and this is now me more just speculating, reading between the lines, is Pete Kwiatkowski, I believe, has been the front runner for this spot since this all kind of went down, since his surprise firing by Texas. It felt like this was the leader in the clubhouse. I have always said that Coach Henne and Coach Belk would be real players in this and would probably have an opportunity to ultimately win this rollover. The question for me and everyone was, if you hire an outside guy such as Pete Kwiatkowski, would he, two things, would he, one, be willing to keep the entire staff intact? Would he not want to go out and bring in any of his own guys or make his own hires? And two, would the current staff be happy with that situation? Right? Like, at the end of the day, all these guys, for love of team, for love of that, at the end of the day, all these guys are looking to grow within their profession. And not just in pay raises, but also in title raises. Like, most of these guys are in this to be a head coach one day, you would think. Now, there are probably some out there that just love coaching the position and, or have done stuff and decided, hey, it's better fit for me, whatever. But it would be interesting to see if you bring someone in, are they going to be, okay, yeah, I'm good with your staff as is? And two, are all these guys like, well, you passed me over to bring someone else in. I'm not sure I want to stay in that role. So that was the kind of two questions at hand. And I believe, again, this is just my speculation, that that's probably some of the delay in this officially being announced or signed or whatever for the next steps to be taken. If you bring in someone, and let's just kind of lay it down how it could go down. If you bring in someone like a Pete Kwiatkowski, and he, whether it's him deciding or the staff deciding they, don't like that in terms of them staying put where they are. So let's just say if you lose a Henny and or a Belk/Trevon Reed, that to me has huge, and I know everyone's hating this domino meme tossing around that all the insiders toss around, so I'm not trying to do it like that, but that to me would have a huge domino effect. Because I believe then you would lose quite a few players. And so at this point in the process, this point of the transfer portal being open, and this point of basically everyone knowing this year is do or die for Lincoln Riley, what gives you the best shot to win? And a lot of people will say, get the proven DC. A lot of people would say that. I believe, and this is not saying one or the other who I prefer, but in general, I believe that, the players play the game. And as I've said all along, good DCs, good coordinators, good coaches can elevate their players' play, but that's also vice versa. Good players can certainly elevate their coaches. And obviously when you have the perfect marriage, that's when you get championship quality teams. Good coaching, good players, then you get to the next level. So you have to kind of think about it like that, because if you lose a lot of top players because you lose some of these position guys that have built essentially this roster through their recruiting, regardless if you get an elite staff to come in, what players is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Are the players coming in that would be replacing who's leaving give you an opportunity to really succeed? So that is kind of the tough question. When you look at Coach Henny, and I've seen some out there saying they don't see the hype or don't see the development. I would push back on that. Again, you got to look at who the players have been and what they've gotten out of them. I know probably statistically everyone's like, oh, you hire Henny, you're going to just have a top defensive line. And it hasn't necessarily been that. But again, you kind of have to look at who the players were that he inherited and then who he has now recruited and what those look like. Because he was hired, remember, January 2014, not 2014, January 2024. So the 2024 class was already done. So he was not involved in any of that recruiting. And, he was hired after the Rams lost their playoff game to the Lions that year. And so he comes in, and the players he inherited from that year, let's just look at like the starters really. Bear Alexander, unfortunately, kind of know what went down with that. This is last season. Gavin Meyer and Devin Tompkins and Nate Clifton. Those were kind of your slotted to be starters. Now, Jade Abasari was a freshman in that class that I think has developed. I think we've seen flashes, but you go into last year, essentially Meyer, Tompkins, and Clifton were kind of your three-man starting rotation. When you look at the ceiling or the talent level, I don't see how you can't argue that he got a lot out of those guys. You get Clifton from 3-star from Vanderbilt. You get Meyer, 3-star from Wyoming. And you get Tompkins, who's been here a 3-star, transition, continued to grow. I think you could argue last year, on the fly, got quite a bit out of those guys. And then you see a guy like Jade Abasari as a true freshman really grow and blossom, and I think he's turned into a really nice player. Is he like a top-flight first-round pick right now? No. But I think he's certainly developed into a very nice quality rotational piece on the defensive line heading into next year and heading into even this year. So then you go, okay, so after that season, you get his first true recruiting class, right, in 2025, or the 2025 class. He gets Jakeem Stewart, arguably the prize of the class, Floyd Boucard, Cash Jacobson, and was involved with Gus Cordova. Of those recruits, obviously Cordova ends up entering the portal for reasons we don't exactly know. Unfortunate. I really liked his prospects. We've heard nothing but really good developmental things about Cash Jacobson and the likes of him continuing to grow and blossom in this. And I think we saw how good Jakeem Stewart and Floyd Boucard can be. And they were true freshmen. Like that, we saw them throughout the course of the year, and Jakeem Stewart didn't even really get to practice much because of the injury he played with. And Floyd Boucard just got better and better and better and looked pretty dang good in that bowl game also. So again, it's a 2-season sample size. Who you inherited. Now that was his first initial group in terms of recruiting. And then we know the 26 elite recruiting class with Winfield, Wafel, Tom Tom, Katawanga, Braden Jones, go down the list. So I do think we've seen development. You just have to look at, he hasn't had like first round talent up to this point. Now with these 2025 guys, Stewart, Boucard, and with this 26 class, those are guys that, hey, you would like to see him develop into first round draft picks, which in turn makes your USC defensive line very good. And you can replicate some of the things that Michigan was able to do with their elite defensive line, what Ohio State's always been able to do, what Oregon can do, go down the list of elite defensive linemen. But you have to look at it from inheritance versus to now what he has built on that line specifically. And I would argue he's done a pretty good job with what he had. The eye-popping maybe numbers and run stopping hasn't been out there, but you got to look at the players that are there and got to get the right ones in place in order to accomplish that. So we'll see what ends up happening with this. Trevon Reed also put out a little tweet this morning with The Undertaker rising up. And let's see, what did he specifically say? I'll put that up on here too for any of you that maybe didn't see this. But says, let's get straight to it. #fight on. So if that's in reference to him being for sure back and locked in, if that's in reference to they kind of have made the decision of who it's going to be, but just haven't announced it yet, who knows? Obviously, Reed is one I think absolutely needs to be retained. So I'll put this all up in a bow, and please comment below because I think there'll be some mixed emotions. And again, this is not a done deal of any of this happening yet. This is just kind of in live, real time what has been going on. I think it's kind of come down to, does USC hire an outside person, which then really shakes up the defensive staff, which then in turn could shake up the current roster? Or do you take a flyer, promote within, whether it's Henny or Belk or co-DCs or however that looks like, and keep kind of everything intact? Because if Henny were to leave, you can bet some of those defensive linemen are probably leaving too. And no matter who you bring in, I'm not sure there's guys in the defensive tackle in the portal who certainly you can bring in right now to make a difference. But if you lose a Jakeem, you lose a Floyd, I mean, I don't know what goes on with with the re-signings in NIL, that kind of changes things a little bit. And maybe they can't leave. I don't really know exactly what the contract language is. But there would probably be some sort of shakeup. So things are going to get really interesting over the next 24 to 48 hours. If you're USC, this thing needs to be done ASAP. Portal's been open now a day. You only have really 12 days left. What is it, to the 16th, I think? So you don't have a ton of time left. And you cannot be scrambling and trying to convince kids when not just you don't have a DC, but you don't know what your staff could potentially look like on defense. So this thing needs to get ironed out, buttoned up, and a hire needs to happen quickly. That is honestly most important. Whether you're on team hire Pete or a proven guy, or you're on team promote from within, either way, it's got to be done ASAP. Because then you need to move forward so you can truly look to 2026. So, yeah, could be a big shakeup. Could be a small. As it stands right now, I would lean, and this is what I want now, not necessarily what I think will happen. I lean, keep it in-house. To me, this feels, and again, this is a DC hiring versus a head coaching hiring, but this feels like a Coach O type kind of thing, where you have a guy in-house who the players love, who's emotional, who can recruit his tail off, who's been a proven commodity in NFL and college circles. And if you go chase someone else and end up letting that person go, I think it ends up hurting you in the long run. Whether it hurts USC or hurts just this current makeup of USC, that's another story. So, completely different admin than what happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I would look at that and not let it repeat if it's me. I think you kind of look at, hey, you got a whole offseason to really hone down schematically and hone down the play calling cadence. But I'd rather keep this group intact and who we got and what we've built and what we're building towards instead of really resetting that side of the ball. That's me. So I'll be back on here with any news. Make sure you're tapped into our message board over on LAFBnetwork.com. Drop all intel in there. That'll be quicker, and then I'll obviously do a video on it after, so make sure you're tuned in there. Hit that like and subscribe button here so you don't miss out on anything. We're back fully at it. So every day, multiple videos. I'll have a transfer portal update here in just a little bit, so be on the lookout for that. And drop any comments you feel. This was more of a just what I've been hearing, what's out there and thoughts. We'll see when we get some more concrete stuff and stuff that I can verify. Then we'll maybe jump back on and have a similar conversation. But that's kind of what's out there right now is that. So we'll see. Big day, big week, big weekend. So appreciate you all, family. As always, fight on. Hey, Trojan family, thank you so much for hanging out and watching the USC LAFB show. Before you go, let me tell you quickly about our friends over at Sleeper. Go right now, download the Sleeper app. It's the #1 sports app, not just for season-long fantasy, but they've got live pickers, they've got live stat updates, they've got a chat. You can chat with other users, plus the daily pick'em, which is a blast, or daily fantasy, whatever you want to call it. You go and pick 2 to 8 players across any sports. If you're talking USC, go choose J.D. Mayav in his next matchup. Pick more or less passing yards, more or less touchdowns. You stack those, and you can win real money. When you go to make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code USCLAFB. You're going to get a match deposit up to $100. Put in $100, you get $100 free to play with from Sleeper. Put in $10, they'll match you that $10, so now you're sitting at $20 to play with. But also, right now, for any new users, no deposit required. You get $20 free entry. You can stack both. You can get the $20 for free, go make a deposit, use USC LAFB, and now you've got a bunch of free money to play with right there on the Sleeper app. Check it out, Trojan family, and when you do, tell them the guys at the USC LAFB sent you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.